right? So it's a fun question for me. Like you sold your business, you did your three years in prison from your contracts, right? Now a lot of people think like they sell a business.
In my opinion, one of the biggest problems that companies have regarding implementing this kind of solution is maybe trusting them, because in light of the vulnerabilities they are able to find during 1 month. For example, if in this month of April we find 100 vulnerabilities, they are only able to remediate 10.
All right. I'm very excited to be here with Jose Palanco. Do I say that right?
It's Palanco.
Palanco.
Jose Palanco. Yeah, exactly.
Jose Palanco. Nice. Love the name. You're quite an interesting guy. I see from your history, you're from Madrid originally.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice. You got rich and famous over there, and then you came stateside. You want to tell me about that journey?
Yeah, actually, I started in cybersecurity a long time ago. Almost 20 years ago. I've been, doing researching to discover these different kind of vulnerabilities and that, and eventually, I decided to create also solutions and software, and I discovered that what I really love is being an entrepreneur. So yeah,
I've seen you bounce between entrepreneurship, occasional short job for like a year or so. I'm guessing you were helping some friends out or something, and then you went right back to your grind.
Yeah. So, but always, what I did, it was always related to cybersecurity. So, the last achievement I love it was in 2018 when Telefonica, a telco with operations in Europe and Latin America, acquired my previous startup, Dyno Flax, that it was a threat intelligence platform. So yeah, it was great. I had to work for 3 years there in Telefonica, where I learned a lot. Working in this kind of corporations is great for learning and knowing people and that. So it was awesome. And now I'm back to
You're
start
free again
from the scratch. Yeah, starting from the scratch. Exactly.
Right. About 2 years now you're into this.
Yeah, actually, it was in 2023 in May when I incorporated the company, but the real development started around 1 year ago, when we realized exactly what is the problem. What is the problem we want to fix?
Okay, it does take a little time to kind of get into the groove and to kind of find your footing in there. So good job. Good job. I've seen people do far slower.
I learned it's in my case, it is important to really solve a problem. So before starting, I wanted to be sure, 100% sure, about the solution I'm creating is solving a problem, and somebody want to fix and to pay for that. So during that period, what I did, it was I was asking different organizations, consultant firms, and that, like Deloitte, EY, etc. And I asked them directly, which is the biggest pain your customer have regarding cybersecurity? And almost all of them, they say that something similar. Okay, there are a lot of tools that are helping us to discover new vulnerabilities, but now we have the vulnerabilities, we don't have the people to remediate them. So that's when I got the idea, and I said, okay, this is something that is interesting. Above all, if we can use AI for this, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So obviously with AI, it was easy to find them and exploit them, right? Which is kind of where a lot of companies are realizing their stuff isn't as secure as they thought it was. And the time for a hack is pretty quick nowadays. Thank God for DeepSeek, right? And,
yeah, exactly.
And so your business must be exploding right now. What was its... What was that process like, right? So it's a fun question for me. Like you sold your business, you did your three years in prison from your contract, right? Now a lot of people think like they sell a business and they're free to go. But a lot of the times, what does that buying company make you do?
Yeah, okay. The most common thing is you have a vesting period. That means you have to stay for a few years. In my case, it was 3 years. I had to stay in Telefonica after my company was acquired, and during that time, I have to support them to do the transition. So, for example, if I created a platform, I have to ensure that the new team or my team can be integrated into their team or things like that. So it's possible to negotiate before the 3 years. Maybe you can leave earlier if everything it's in order to for you to leave and everything looks fine, and that there is not any reason for keeping you in the company if they don't need you.
Yeah.
So in my case, actually, I think I negotiate to leave 6 months earlier than the vesting period without losing all the money, because when you have the vesting period, according you are stay more time, you are receiving all the money from the acquisition.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that they maybe have to consider that in if they want the price point they want.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And you got out of that 6 months early. Congratulations. Means they were happy with the way you ran it.
I didn't expect that, but I proposed to them that I want to explore new ideas, and I show them that the technology is working and they don't need me anymore. So there's no reason, as I said, there's no reason for me to be there.
And they probably didn't, if they didn't need you in the first place, they might have appreciated it's hey, you did good. You can go ahead, right? We don't need to pay you a salary plus the, those costs. And it sets them free. They probably never thought about in the first place. This guy may want to go. They're probably thinking you love it there and you never want to leave.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that was one of my points, saying, okay, if I'm leave 6 months earlier, you can save the salary, and maybe you can have one person that's more
more economical,
convenient for the position.
Yeah. Right. And you took care of them, and I'm sure you kind of helped them through that. If they need it. I suspect they probably didn't need it at that point with you there, 3 years taking care of it, handing it off. So good for you. That's such an exciting story. And then you said, okay, cool. I'm free. I have this idea in the back of my head, and now I'm going to go figure it out. Now, did you have the idea? And did that idea change from that time you left Telefonica?
Yeah.
Telefonica. Did it change from the time you were I have this idea and I want to go into the marketplace and test it out, versus when you're had that realization that everybody can find the problems now, but how to remediate it is where the money is. Was that the original idea, or did it kind of evolve to that?
Actually, are the customers and the consultant firms who really show me everything, because at the moment, okay, I have a very basic idea about how I think works this new market that it was emerging, but in my case, I was trying to get interviews with leaders in different companies, tech leads, CTOs, and that to try to understand the problem. And I realized something that it's incredible. For example, some companies are only able to remediate 10% of the vulnerabilities they are able to find during 1 month. For example, if in this month of April, we find 100 vulnerabilities, they are only able to remediate 10. That means the next month, they will have another 100 in the best of the cases, plus the 90 from the previous month. So this is a problem that is getting bigger and bigger. The companies now, they are not thinking about remediate all the vulnerabilities. They are thinking in a different approach. It's trying to do prioritization to see, okay, I think this month I will fix this one and this one. They have to
It's I think this one and this one will go get me fired, and then we'll fix as many as the rest as we can.
Yeah, but this is a real problem, because what happens if, okay, maybe you choose well and you choose the most probable, but maybe an attacker is able to get access to the organization
Right.
using a different one that it was the not the most probable. What happened in that
Yeah.
case? You did
Right. He
your
still
best.
gets in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just
So
takes him
the
20 minutes
solution
instead of 10 minutes.
the solution are bulk remediation. So you can remediate not only everything that is arriving every month, but also work on your backlog. That's the
Mm-hmm.
solution.
Mm-hmm.
And actually,
That's
this
genius.
is
Yeah. So
actually it's only
just put that
possible.
together and say, here's how you can solve it with AI right away.
Exactly, because trying to solve this problem at first, when the customer said that, I said, okay, I think this is a real problem, but I'm not sure if I want to get involved into this, because it's really hard. It's a problem hard to solve. How can you automate the remediation of this? But at the same moment, the AI
Mm-hmm.
was emerging, and I realized there is a really good matching between the problem and the solution.
Yep.
And I said, okay,
Yep.
this is not trying to apply AI just for using AI. This is using AI in a really
Uh-huh.
interesting spot where there are people that really need that.
Yep. Yeah. And probably for, I'm guessing like 75% of the cases, the remediation is very clear cut use cases where they can basically define, make sure they put in the right architecture and come up with a standardized solutions. They would just take regular person a lot of time to research, to put together, to see how it fits, to then go and validate and test it, and then create that test suite to make sure it's resolved into the future.
Yeah, yeah. There are different kind of remediations. For example, some of them are easy to fix. Maybe for an AI, it's super easy to fix. But what we saw is there are different kind of remediations that are harder.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
that's why last year we started thinking of agents. When at that moment, the agents are not like mainstream like
Yeah. It was just like
nowadays.
a concept, like maybe we could do agents too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we started creating our first agent last year. That it was like a developer, a real
Mm-hmm.
developer. When you are in front of, for example, of your a folder with your files and that. So we started to thinking, okay, what are the tools we need to give to that agent to behave exactly like a developer that can fix a thing? So, okay, first we need is an editor for edit files, but AI is not like a human, like can use directly the interfaces. Okay, it can, but it's not efficient. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, what we thought is, okay, let's create an editor that an agent can use. And the editor is super simple. It's just like a command line, and
Yep.
using the command line,
Yeah, you have
you
all
can
those
talk
command
to
lines. You
the
can run them in the background. Don't even have to
yeah.
see it. Shows some notes. Does yours, when you do it, how much of that like thinking process do you and execution process do you show, or is it kind of like, I guess there's two schools. One school is like, we'll go ahead and do it, right? Like Devin, and it's just don't worry about it. We'll kind of tell you about what's going on. You don't have to see what's happening, and go check your PRs if you want. And then there's the others like, hey, I'm going to show you the code I'm doing. You can review it in some kind of terminal or screen. And then you can kind of walk through it together with some hand holding. Kind of, and of course, there's a mile in between. But what's your philosophy on the best way to handle that? Because security is a
Okay,
big deal. Right? You have to learn from it.
in my opinion, we have advantages and disadvantages in this particular field, which is AI remediation. Because, for example, if you compare with other different of agents, as you mentioned, Debian, or for example, Cursor, Cursor,
Yep.
or Windsurf, they have very
Yep.
cool agents for the developers for creating
Mm-hmm.
software. In their case, they need to have full access to all the projects, and sometimes it's not easy they to keep the context of everything. And
Yeah.
doing vibe coding for small projects is easy, but
Mm-hmm.
once the projects are getting bigger, it's harder. But
Vibe coping is
in
super hard unless you're keeping the context and you're guiding it. And you got to constantly be reminding me. It's like, no, Don't try to recreate the whole fish right there. You reference this. Okay, fine. Good job. Give it a hug and keep it going.
Exactly. In our case, for example, in cybersecurity remediation, the scope is really narrow because you just need to fix one thing, one feature in general. There are exceptions where you need to do a lot of things, but okay, let's focus. Let's focus on the general things. That okay, maybe you have, for example, a vulnerability. Let's say SQL injection or something really simple. You have to modify just a few lines, and it will fix. But
or you might be using JavaScript and you have to change the whole library.
Yeah. This is the second example I want to give. But in the first example, maybe you have like 3 or 4 lines that you need to modify, and for an LLM or for an agent, it's easy to do it. However, we have a challenge here. We have to be able to fix that issue without creating a new one, because maybe sometimes the AI,
maybe somebody's relying on that side effects.
So in our case, what we do is do fine tuning. So our LLM, it has information about best practices in development and hard code. Ensuring all the possible vulnerabilities are covered with the solution. Even our agent has to create different kind of tests before applying the paths and that to ensure that this is working. So we pay attention on that. We enrich we do the fine tuning, and we add information about the best practices. For example, OWASP and other organizations that help developers to create safer code. So okay, maybe it's a narrow portion of code for fix, but the challenge is not include new vulnerabilities in the remediation, because what's the point of fixing something and maybe creating
breaking the rest of
another one?
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes it's so easy to fix one thing, make it proper, and then you'll see the app that you're not even looking at, but like the admin panel, which is a separate app pulled off of those base APIs, that'll stop working, and now all of a sudden all the reports are broken.
Yeah, but there is something that is hard also. For example, in our case, because I told you there are 2 examples. One is in which you have to modify only 1 or 2 files, or maybe a few lines and that. But what happens, for example, if you are using an old version of a library, let's say, for example, PHP 7, which is deprecated and really vulnerable, and you need to upgrade your complete application to PHP 8. The vulnerabilities is in all the code. You need to go 5 by 5. You need to check the functions, update that, and this is time consuming. And sometimes
you got to change the logic of the app, not just the way it works.
And the API sometimes is changing. Okay, so what we did is we give also some capabilities to our agent to be able to do that, to go into a project and modify not only a few files, but also modify the whole project to upgrade to a new version of a library.
Bravo. Yeah, that's, for a person that can take a month, right? Even on a smaller project, right? Like a small business kind of project, but AI can do it in a matter of a few hours.
Yeah, we measure we can reduce the remediation time up to 95% of the time. So let's imagine a developer that may cost, I don't know, depending on the company, organizations, and location, 100,000 a year, 200,000 a year, or even more. Let's imagine that person working for 1 month in this feature, when an AI can do it in less than an hour. So let's imagine the money you can save.
It's insane. On top of that, you're losing that month of development time when you have that backlog of all the work that you're trying to figure out to do. And in a culture, so up until now, and maybe still now to a little degree, we have this culture of there's always going to be bugs and there's always going to be vulnerabilities. This is the nature of the world, because we have to balance production and creation with trying to keep out the bad guys. And, obviously there's more good guys and we have to make sure the money's coming in. So there's got to be a sacrifice somewhere. This is just logical. But now, right, we don't have to do that sacrifice, right? You don't have to give up that developer that's doing a month upgrading, getting crazy because everybody's bothering him for new stuff that's coming up. He's like, no, I have to block it off because everything's different now, right? You just wait until I'm done and then you can bother me. Or just write it down on the board for me, and then if you can find a piece of white space, right? But now you can have both worlds.
Yeah, exactly. There are problems because maybe not all organizations are ready for using this kind of technology, and the most important thing is you have to take advantage of this technology, but you cannot rely 100% on it. So what we say to our customers is, okay, you can use our platform, but it's your responsibility after apply all the fixes, run all the tests, and ensure that everything is working fine. We are saving already 95% of the time of the remediation time. So now it's the customer's responsibility to ensure that everything is
take that 5% test it. You know the system.
Yeah. This is super important, mandatory actually. Yeah.
It's got to be. You can't rely on anything. But same way as you go in and you modify a little bit of a data structure in anything, and you got to start all your tests all over and make sure that you just didn't destroy the world, or something important like people being able to pay.
Yeah, exactly. So, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems that companies have regarding implementing this kind of solution is maybe trusting them, because it's like giving access to one of the most precious things you have in your organization, your IP, to a third party.
Yep.
And it's easier.
And sometimes they can't even do it.
Yeah, but I worked before as analyst, and I was doing this manually. I was receiving the zip file with the files and checking line by line and discovering what is the vulnerability, and that it takes time. And then okay, but it was not my responsibility doing the remediation. But at least I was like checking and reviewing and finding the security flaws. However, it's hard for a company giving access this to a third party at this point, because they don't know, for example, if we are using some kind of AI that is being trained with the data of their code or something like that. So that's a friction point we found. However, in our case, for example, we use OpenAI, but not directly. We use Azure OpenAI. That means it's Microsoft.
It's Microsoft based, which they have a whole different confidentiality clause.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is an important thing. The other thing is there are some customers that they remember in the past, a few years ago, it was hard to move from on-prem to the cloud, and some customers they have the problem to start using things in the cloud. And that, I think, with the AI, the friction is not the same. However, when it comes to IP, maybe giving your code, you have that kind of things. It's the perception I have is what I saw.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And part of it really depends on where on the cloud they already are, or if they're on the cloud at all in the first place. So if they've resisted that whole cloud thing, good luck not bringing real hardware and using the localized LLM. But if they're already open to that cloud environment, if you with Azure, right, if they're already on it, it's a no-brainer. It's like, hey, look, you're already in this ecosystem, consider it, right? Let's talk about the risks. If they're on like AWS, I'm not confident in AWS. AWS has amazing machine learning, but I'm not sure what it has for solid AI right now. I know they have a lot of research going into it, but what's your experience with AWS's AI?
Actually, we didn't play with that. I think they have really cool things, really cool stuff. The last thing I hear, I think they had an agreement with, I think it's Anthropic. So the agreement
they supported Anthropic a lot.
Yeah, yeah. If I'm not wrong, they will use Anthropic, but in the deal, Anthropic needs to train the next models using the Amazon hardware or something like that. So it's like
It's with AWS's AI.
actually we didn't play with that. I think they have really cool things, really cool stuff. And the last thing I care, I think they had an agreement with I think it's Anthropic. So
Yeah,
the agreement
they
they
supported
had,
Anthropic a
it's
lot.
yeah. If I'm not wrong, they will use Anthropic, but in the deal, Anthropic needs to train the next models using the Amazon hardware or something like that. So it's like
Uh-huh.
a deal for
Okay,
for
there's some
having
back and forth.
more engagement between them and that. Yeah. So, but in my opinion, going back to the new models with AI and confidentiality and that, I remember in the past there was a company that, in my opinion, they invented the SaaS, and it's Salesforce. For
Yep.
Salesforce, it was hard at first time to convince the people, okay, move your customer data, finance data, all your information, move it to the cloud. That was even harder, because in my opinion it's harder to doing that than sharing
Mhm.
your code for performing a security assessment and remediation. So, but I'm sometimes comparing these two situations. I think are pretty similar.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it is similar. It is similar. So I think that if they're already in the cloud, it's an organic conversation. If they have that localized hardware, then it's more of like, well, there's a reason we're localized hardware. Um, in that case, what are your thoughts about the future of localized LLMs? Do you think there's going to be potential for that to be able to keep up with this, growing security demand, or is it always going to have to be a cloud based, or
For
not always,
the
but for like the next couple of years?
uh, Actually, I'm not sure. I sent a proposal for Black Hat conferences. It's a conference for cybersecurity. It's hosted in Vegas. And I'm, if I'm accepted, I will be talking about the problems of using supposedly open LLMs, like for example DeepSeek. And the thing is, uh, this kind of models are free. You can download them, and maybe you think it's safe to run it locally
Uh-huh.
because, okay, they are not connecting to the internet. They cannot share any data with third parties and that. But what happens if this kind of models, they have some kind of bias that is, depending on the question you are asking,
Uh-huh.
is not answering the same answer to me and to you. And for
Yep.
example, let's imagine it's possible to create some kind of um, supply chain attack in which you rely on your local LLM. It could be DeepSeek or anyone, and you are asking, for example, to create some code, okay, or some
Yep.
command for your sysadmin. But the LLM is learning that the company, it's for example located in US, and this is a targeted attack against companies, like imagine in Texas, for example. Okay,
Uh-huh.
if the LLM has the context and he realizes, okay, it's asking me to create some tool for calculating the taxes in Texas, blah blah blah, and that maybe it can activate
Uh-huh.
a thinking for adding on purpose a vulnerability.
Yep. Yeah, I
Okay,
can start weaving
so
in some
but
vulnerabilities.
this will be triggered only for these specific companies, you know.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, there are
Specific
different
backdoors
kind.
for the party. We
Yeah,
all
yeah,
know that
exactly.
there's a lot of rumors that DeepSeek has a little bit of party tendency.
Hmm. So my talk is like based on different proofs of concepts and experiments showing that it is possible using training from the scratch, and also using fine tuning. you can take a free model and you can do some fine tuning to add some kind of bias and add this kind of poison responses and payloads with different kind of attacks.
Yeah. You remember how, I mean, it could be little funny stuff, right? Like even Google's Gemini, I think, was it called Gemini back then? But Google's Gemini, let's say it's Gemini 2 years ago, they made like somebody's asked for a picture of George Washington and they made a black George Washington. And it's like, okay, little stuff in there. You don't know where the kind of the truth and the real thing is in there if you're not really prepared for it.
Yeah. This is it's actually the same problem, because they did try to be like more open, and maybe they are trying to, okay, let's try not to generate always white people. And what happened if you modify too much and you touch too much into this thinking model? Maybe you can get unexpected results. Like this guy. I don't know if it was Gemini or I think it was Gemini, because Gemini is open source. I think it may be Gemini, that one. You're right.
Yeah, it was a funny story. So, and sometimes it's not going to be so comical, right? If it's put it in little, if it's like, wow, we think you're a slave owner company and we're going to put in some, retribution, make sure that you give discounts to minority clients, right? Who's to say it won't do that, and who say it won't think it's appropriate? It's more secure, more fair.
Yeah, in my opinion, I prefer to keep the models as open as possible, like more free. And okay, maybe in some cases you can get a response that is not politically correct or something like that. But I think it's better that creating that kind of monster that will return weird answers depending on the information you give. I think it's not the solution, this kind of control on the models.
It's when you open up a model, the open source community is pretty good at finding these kind of weaknesses and sharing them out. If you do this in a private model, it's sometimes harder to nail down these weaknesses and to find solutions for it. So that open source model, at least, it maybe have some more vulnerabilities than a closed box, because you can just look into it and kind of play with it better, right? But you can also have more control over it and remove some of those filters that might be getting in the way of you doing your job the way you need to.
Yeah. In my opinion, is like, for example, the freedom in the internet, or the freedom access, free access to information, and that controlling too much can create more problems than sometimes. That kind of over control, it can create a lot of problems. And I agree, for example, in some cases, okay, we should try to add some limitations, because where are the boundaries? For example, I don't want, like, maybe a kid can ask an LLM how to create a bomb with things he can find at home or something like that. So I understand that maybe we can find a limit between.
It's always been this, right? Since the internet came.
Exactly.
There's still kids can still use onion torrents and find this information on how to do that. So if the kid really wants to, it's not a matter of that to doing that. But I think the big scare we have is we're getting to the point when AI could probably, like, not create a bomb, but create a biological weapon with a little kid before he's old enough to realize that he's about to wipe out humanity.
Yeah, exactly.
Parents, this is a warning to parents. Keep your kids off the unfiltered LLMs. You might destroy humanity by lunchtime.
Yeah, I don't know how I can imagine. I cannot imagine how it would be the future, like in 10 years. Just in a few years, what we have is amazing. I'm every day in this field because I love AI, and
Mm-hmm.
every day I'm reading news. I know when I will go to Twitter or YouTube, I will find every day something that will impress me regarding this. It's happening day after day. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
happening
something
to you
like
also.
something research breaking paper worthwhile on the news every day. And it's exciting. And what do you think about robotics coming up now? AI
I
mixed in with
think
robotics.
I'm waiting for that. Actually, I'm fond of uh, robots, and I want to see one day one humanoid robot that is able to help me with different kind of tasks and that. I
Yep.
think it's awesome. It's also very useful. Not only robots, but also how can this technology help people that maybe are disabled and they cannot
Mm-hmm.
walk or something like that. I think this will
Oh,
be
that's like the
uh,
best use case, right?
great.
How to
Yeah,
build robotics to help people walk, the exoskeletons maybe for disabled people to get sensation and to get mobility and get freedom. It's I have a disabled son, so for me, I'm very excited about that. And I can only imagine how far it's going to come in a few years. Have you seen Elon's video? I saw an Elon video where he had one of his robots doing plumbing. Is that a real thing or is that like a
I
mock-up?
didn't I didn't see that.
So yeah, just like
Uh,
2 days ago, I saw this. Like now they have their robots with enough flexibility to do plumbing. Like the robot doesn't know how to
uh-huh.
do it because of the LLM. He's able to troubleshoot it just like you would a person, and he's going through it and fixing the small plumbing leak.
Yeah, I didn't see, but uh, I watched recently videos really amazing about the mobility of this kind of robot. That sometimes when you see the movement, it looks like a human, and it's because it was trained with
It was trained to
real
behave and rewarded for
information.
human behavior.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Maybe in the future we can see, like in the movies.
Maybe maybe on Christmas.
Yeah, everybody's talking about that. Like, okay, the movie Hair, like when we saw a few years ago. It's not really long time ago.
Uh-huh.
It's at first time when I watched it, I was okay. This is too far to be real. And
Mhm.
now when I'm watching the movie, some fragments of the movie, and that I realize, okay, we are exactly there. We are exactly
Yeah.
there. This is
I was watching iRobot.
the
We're like almost there.
yeah. This is exactly
Yep. And once we get robots into manufacturing, I think the world changes. Like we
yeah.
already have, robotic manufacturing plants, right? Where the lights are out, there's no dust. If you have to go into it, you wear like a spacesuit, right? And it's all robotics. But once we get the humanoid, robotics in there and working like people and with the mobility to and the ability to kind of mix components and mix up robot creations for the job, right? You can imagine like one robot in the morning puts on its roller skate legs and just scoots around the building, right? Treadmill, like treads. And then, there's another one. He has to go up some stairs. So he goes, hooks up, jumps on his legs or stair climbing legs, and then starts doing that or whatever it is, right? The adaptability that the robots will be able to have, I think, is going to just increase manufacturing and production in a way that's going to just drive and totally change the way we do mining. Right now, mining is
Yeah.
dangerous and terrible for people, right? But with
Yeah.
some robots, you don't care if the mine shaft crashes on them that much, right? Sure, you lose some money, but then you just go have another robot go dig them out, get the resource, and put them back to work.
Yeah, exactly. It's cheaper to repair them, and I'm glad robots can be repaired because humans, if we have an accident, sometimes it could be
Oh
terrible.
yeah.
So I think it's good. And some people say, okay, but maybe the robots and the AI will take all the jobs and we cannot do anything. And that I think never happened in the past year. We live different situation in which technology is helping us, and the only thing is happening is we have to move to do things that the technology cannot do, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we are always moving to do these kind of things, or getting specialized in some specific things, and that. And for example, with the industrial revolution, everybody thought, okay, how machines will be creating the things and the stuff and that. And what happened is, okay, sometimes we prefer, for example, in my case, I will ask you, Philip, but in my case, in the future, if I'm talking to someone, I prefer to talk to a human. So I think it will be hard to replace a human. So in different kind of situations, okay, for saving money, they can try to put a robot or something like that.
Oh yeah, and sometimes I don't want to talk to a person, right? Like I want to have maybe I'm shy to ask a question to a person, right? Like maybe I have a technical question, right? And I just want a good answer, so I'll ask the chat machine. I used to hate asking chatbots, right? But now sometimes I'd rather just deal with a chatbot than I would a real person, because they're impatient, they don't know all the answers, they're going to have to go ask their supervisor, right? But now one chatbot has all the details, the authority, as much as the system is going to give them, and you can get done way faster. And they're like, they pretend to be very empathetic, right? They're not saying, "Sir, you're pissing me off, I'm going to hang up on you." No, right? I can curse at them. They're going to be like, "Gosh, I'm sorry you're upset. Here, see if I can give you a better answer." Right? A person, they're just going to like click, and for good reason, right? But sometimes I don't want to be considerate to a person. I just want to solve a problem. And it's easier to do that nowadays. So there's times when I like rather deal with a chatbot and a person. Now, exactly like you said, there's an art, there's something creative and meaningful when a human does something. So I could have a robot, I'm sure in like 5 years, we'll have robots that come and do tiling floors, for example. And they'll make the perfectly tiled floor. The gaps will be perfect. The mortar will be perfect. It'll be perfectly leveled, or whatever kind of imperfections I want. Like say, I don't want it to look too perfect, so put in a total 5% variance in there to make it kind of not look too trippy real. Right?
Yeah.
So they'll even have that kind of built-in imperfection so that they can do that. Of course, they're going to have laser sight and everything that a person would have a hard time doing. And the flexibility to do it, right? Because you're not putting weight on and all this. So the machines will be way better. But I'm still going to rather, if I can afford it, to have a nice guy or girl that can do tiling, to do that human touch, so that when my friends come over, I can say, I had artist John do my tiling. Right?
Yeah.
This artist tiling guy. And that's what I think they're going to have to become, is like artist something. It's going to be an expression of the human value, rather than just this perfectly or as much imperfection as I want them to.
The thing is, if the manufacturers are able to create robots that behave like humans, and maybe not perfect, but just adaptable, maybe they can find that you can I'm worried, because maybe your best friend could be a robot, or your partner could be a robot, because
well, I've heard jokes about this, right? How do you, exactly. We're getting to the point in time when you got to say, if you have a young kid, do you have any kids, Jose?
No kids at the moment.
Oh, get on it. You look young, but I'm wondering if you graduate, if you started working in 2003.
Yeah.
I have kids. My youngest is 5 years old, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, he's cute, but him or some of his friends may be married to a robot one day. Could you imagine, like, especially in China, where the ratio of men to women is so off? Like, what's the point? Why not marry a caregiving robot?
I think maybe it's the evolution also. Maybe we will create relationship with robots, and maybe we can be even more happy with a robot, with a person. We can see nowadays.
It could be.
I'm not
right. A lot of people fall in love with the chatbots.
I think you're right. Maybe we can be even more happy with a robot than with a real person in some cases. It will depend, but I cannot. Nobody can ensure that being with a human, you will be 100% happy.
Right?
Otherwise, we will
There's
not
a
see
such thing as
divorces.
divorce. Yeah, right. A lot of
Yeah,
people suffer, right? I can imagine a guy coming out of divorce saying, "Never again. I'm just going to get my robot companion."
but in my opinion, this will be a super change in society because for example, if I'm a guy, I can buy, for example, a female robot, and
Yep.
I think it's normal doing an investment because when you want to court your girl, you have to invest or you have to buy, and for maybe for guys, there is not like a barrier for doing that. But for example, in the case of a woman, I'm not sure if a woman will invest, like, I don't know, 30K in having a partner, and
Uh-huh.
like paying for all the expenses, the reparations, and that, because men, we are more used to doing this. But I don't know, I think this would be crazy in the future. I want to see how how can
I think
develop
time will tell.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this is a very good market also for the future. I think I can see this is a very good business, and this can make happy a lot of people, of course. And maybe some people will hate me if I'm say that you can be in some cases more happy with a robot than with a person, but I believe that it could be possible.
It could be possible in some ways, right? There's no perfect happiness in life after all. So there's it really depends on the what's available, what you could achieve in a reasonable time in real life, and satisfying that need for loneliness, right? This is one of the
Yeah,
big use cases. China is facing this, where they have an aging population, and they've been working on robotics for a long time because they know that this is a likely avenue to solving the elderly problem without enough the young adults, especially enough young adults that want to provide health care to an aging population. And way better
yeah.
solution than saying, "Gosh, you hit 85, you don't walk anymore. Just come take a nap over here, and you don't have to wake up."
The only thing is we have to ensure that we need to have kids also. So maybe, yeah, it's possible artificially having kids and that. So yeah, I think
Yeah,
the society will find ways. Always life find a way.
life finds a way. Life finds a way. I love it. You know what? And that might be the perfect way place to end this conversation for today. And Jose, I had so much fun with this. Is there any last things you wanna share before we call it a day?
Yeah, I forgot almost to talk at the beginning. We were talking about, we are doing this new entrepreneurship and that. I'm looking for a co-founder. We have a
Uh-huh.
company that is running. We have investment. We have the first customers, and we are looking someone who wants to join the company. So yeah,
Awesome.
maybe they can let me know. They can you can find me in LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it
Jose
in the
Palanco.
notes below the call, your link, your LinkedIn and your company profile. And yeah, definitely, guys. Jose sounds like a really fun guy to work with. So I think that co-founder is gonna be blessed to work with you.
Okay, thank you, Phil, for your time. Also, it was my pleasure being here with you today.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. And what a fun conversation. Maybe there'll be room for a part two. This was a good one.
Okay, thank you.